AI beyond software, and we've got one of the hottest startups in UK agri-tech and one of the most astute investors in this area too. So let's just get introductions out of the way. Let's start with you, Gustav. Just give us a bit of an overview of Syndo, your startup.
Yes, so Syndo is a biomanufacturing startup where we design full enzyme systems to enable new feedstocks to replace petrochemicals. So we take feedstocks, carbon feedstocks, and convert these into bioactives that can replace ingredients in food, cosmetics, and other areas where bioactives are relevant as well.
Okay, what's the size of the team? How many people do you employ?
We're 12 people.
12 people, okay. And Ali, just give us a brief Clay Capital.
Sure. Clay Capital is a food and ag tech investor, so we invest across the food and agriculture value chain. In essence, we're a deep tech investor, but we apply that particularly to change in food and agriculture. We typically say we invest from soil to guts, so we're as interested in soil microbes as human microbes and everything in between. We invest in companies like Syndo on the basis of particularly really interesting data sets, but that those can be applied to commercial problems that are high value and highly scalable. So happy to be here.
Okay, and apart from Syndo, which are there any portfolio companies that people might know of?
Oh, we have a big range. I mean, we invested in one of the first AI discovery companies within the drug and nutraceutical space. It's called Neuritas. They do peptide discovery. It was originally an Irish company. They're now Irish and US. Nora has been at that for about 10 years. And it's now commercial. They're selling B2B peptides in Asia, Europe, North America.
Okay, grand. So, Gustav, just tell us broadly what Syndo is doing differently to the world's biggest enzyme companies. What's your kind of point of difference?
So at the core of it, we started off at Oxford in 2015 with fundamental research where we went out to discover novel enzymes that could perform new types of chemistry. And then we started cataloging these, taking on a lot of data, performance data, as well as functional data. And then we started Syndo in 2020 already with this sort of database of new enzymes, and then we expanded that using AI models quite significantly. So I think the core thing that is different from other enzyme companies is that we have very different enzymes. We've done a lot of discovery, and we have proprietary data that other people don't have.
Okay, so that's interesting. So you've got this kind of mix of AI model and proprietary data. I mean, what was so on your AI platform, what's been the biggest challenge in building the platform?
So when you build in the physical world, I think that the speed at which you can iterate is always difficult. So when you design a new enzyme, you actually have to then make the enzyme through cell expression. Then you have to test the enzyme and put it through all the different characterization models physically, and then feed back into the models, and that takes time. So you do have to have quite good models to start with, so your hit rate is good, and then that active feedback loop is crucial with both positive and negative data to be able to continuously build and outperform.
Okay. Are you so your AI models, are they in-house or are you built on top of these frontier models? Or?
We do both. We don't currently train foundation models, but we build on top of that. But we also build a lot of models internally. For specific purposes. So we have prediction models which we use to sort of find new enzymes, predict what they do, predict characteristics of them, and then we have generative models where we use those to redesign enzymes to create new functionality and new application areas. Okay,
Ali, let's bring you in. So obviously you must see a lot of competitor products to competitor startups to Gustav's. How significant or how good is Syndo's AI platform in terms of what you're seeing in the rest of the market?
So I think we kind of come at it the other way, and for anyone who's Generation Management, the investment firm that is not ours, but I'll promote their report. They came out with a really good report on physical AI about a month ago, and one of the points they make in terms of how an investor looks at the space is customer adoption and value creation for customers. And so though that's sort of a cheap answer of we default to whether or not it can create value and commercialize, to some degree, we're not AI experts and nor would we claim to be. We can bring in people to help with diligence, for sure, and our co-investor in Syndo and other businesses are probably more data-centric AI model expertise, but for us it's industry. And so with Syndo particularly, it was, what are you doing to create value that'll have ultimately a high value business outcome? And so in Syndo's case, the example is, for instance, they can apply enzymes to flavors and fragrances, fine molecules, chemistry outcomes that commercially are small volume but high value. And a lot of the challenges within the enzyme space, and certainly food and agriculture, is in essence you're talking about an industry that is fundamentally industrial and large scale. And you do not want to be in a world where you're looking for large volume, small value. You want to be the opposite, obviously. And so finding that mix is what made Syndo particularly interesting, and then overlaid with the ability to scale that more broadly because of the way they're treating the data and the proprietary nature of the data.
Okay, and more broadly, with the startups you're looking at to invest in, how kind of well-versed are the founders, even in agri-tech? How well-versed are they in AI too? Is that just a given that they're like that?
Increasingly so. I mean, like all businesses, I think everyone's looking at how they adopt AI to their business to create greater scalability, to create outcomes that self-generate in essence. AI native businesses in food and ag are limited. I think it goes back to the point of quality of data, proprietary data, quantity of data, but also quality. And that mix and being able to find that combination is not easy. The other issue within food and agriculture is there is a lot of data, but it's poorly organized, it's not very digitized. So that was sort of the origin of many investors in our space, was the idea of the oldest sector in the world can and should move to be digitized and therefore have different outcomes than it has today, but that's still a work in process.
Okay, so Gustav, just related to that, in terms of your 12-person team, I guess they're all pretty AI native, are they? And more broadly, can you talk about the challenges of industrial firms in adopting, I mean, you kind of touched on this, in generalized AI models, and how do you resolve that issue?
Yeah, I mean, the team is split between, we have about half the team is in the lab, and then we have 3 people on the computational side, and we have a few people who bridge the two. I think traditional firms have had an issue, as you said as well, that they have a lot of data often, but it's very siloed, unstructured, varying quality, depending on how and when it was measured. And I think structuring those data sets will be the sort of biggest bottleneck for a lot of people in adopting their own unique models. Okay, and can we talk more broadly about, I guess a massive issue is supply chains, introducing AI into supply chains, everything from, I mean, you've mentioned a few there, poor data, high costs, difficult integration with legacy systems, staff resistance to automation. Are they all continue to be kind of significant issues?
Yeah, I mean, it's why I suppose, certainly within our sector, and it's probably true across, it's less a technical issue and more an organizational issue and adoption and being able to have data organized in such a way that you can actually apply a model to do whatever it is, the outcome that you want. There are very interesting companies working on kind of the supply chain piece, whether that be connecting demand signals, so understanding from yield through to market, how a farmer, for instance, can connect those two things better so there's less commercial wastage. You have it obviously in Gustav's side of things and others that are more lab-based, being able to apply in a more controlled environment. And so I think for that reason, you'll have seen more AI applied to discovery, whether that be the pharma route, the food route, or the kind of specialty chemistry.
And of those that I mentioned before, the poor data, the difficult integration with legacy systems, staff resistance to automation, cyber risks, which is the most kind of pressing challenge, you think, out of all, or are they all equally so?
I think it depends on the organization. So it's variable, and as usual, some are more quick to adopt than others. Food is also very much a global system, obviously, and so your ability to kind of look across macro is easier said than done. Add to that, as everybody knows, that there's more volatility in supply chains today. Oil prices affect fertilizer prices affect cost of food. And so, just looking at that is the burning platform, never mind creating an AI integration for whatever particular team within an organization. So arguably they have bigger fish to fry.
Gustav, your thoughts on supply chain integration?
From our perspective, what we're trying to do is enable more secure supply chains by enabling new feedstocks. So from the enzyme perspective, we can take different forms of feedstock that can feed into the same markets. So if there is disruptions, for example, you can then switch one out for the other.
Okay, so you're, let's kind of switch focus and talk about sovereignty, which is a kind of big issue. You're obviously, Syndo is you're UK-based, but how important is it that you've got a European footprint? Is that becoming more of something your customers care about at all, or Gustav?
Yeah, I think it's brilliant to be based in the UK for talent. We bring in a lot of people from Oxford, Manchester, Cambridge, the UK, the London universities as well. But in terms of the business side of specialty chemicals and food companies, they all tend to be based in Europe. Okay. So that it is crucial to have a presence there for us. Okay.
So where about you? You've got your UK. Where else are you based in Europe then? You've got your UK head office and your.
We're only based in the UK at the moment.
Okay. Ali, can you talk a bit about sovereignty? Is it getting to be a bigger issue?
I mean, I think for us where that becomes very real is, so for instance, we're invested in a company called MyAlgae. MyAlgae is based in Scotland. They ferment using whiskey waste streams. An algae, from that algae they extract a DHA alternative, so an omega-3 alternative, which is cheap to produce because of the side streams, but also because of the way they're kit. It's not pharma grade, it's off the shelf. The application for that is within aquaculture, pet food, and human supplements. And so with them, if you look at essentially omega-3 as ingredients, not from wild caught, there are basically two other companies. There's Corbion and Vermaris. Vermaris is DSM. Corbion produces in Brazil. And so for instance, fish farms in Scotland and in Norway, it's far more secure to have a provider that is based in Europe with a port that can deliver in a short time period without that much disruption, or at least you can see it pretty clearly. It should be okay, comparably. And so in that sense, I think the sovereignty point becomes more of a commercial driver, simply because you have greater clarity on supply chain security and, of course, cost. And within the fish meal market, it's a very volatile priced market. Stocks will continue to decline, and in that sense, price will continue to go up. It will bounce, as it always has, just like cocoa, coffee, et cetera, any of the commodities, but particularly in fish, because of climate change, because of overfishing and otherwise. Anyway, all of this to say, it is a driver for companies who have secure supply chains, and for businesses like Syndo, your proximity, even if we're not literally attached to Europe, we are closer, and so that is a desirable feature.
Okay, no, that's really interesting. And Ali, can you just talk more broadly about some of the agri-tech kind of investment trends you're seeing this year, apart from top of that?
Oh, I mean, all of this pertains, and I think the question, like any other sector, of, because of AI, is anything that I would otherwise look at redundant, but because it'll be, replicated, et cetera, that we have to be mindful of that, and we pay attention to it for sure. However, as per this panel, the fundamental difference is we do not just do software investments, and in essence, you can't. The reason being that you need quality data. To get quality data, you typically need some form of hardware in order to leverage from. In Syndo's case, that's a lab. In any number of our businesses, that's true. Otherwise, it could be farming, it could be supply chain, it could be on machine, like on a tractor. So in that sense, it's far harder to say, can Anthropic just do this? Not really in the same ways. That said, we're very much alive to the fact that OpenAI, Anthropic, et cetera, have all launched kind of science-oriented data ambitions and programs of work. And so you have to hold it up against the metric of what does this mean for anything I'll invest in today to be sure that there's defensibility. So,
Gustav, that's really interesting. I mean, you said you've got a point of difference to the AI lab. So, Gustav, you're not unduly concerned about what OpenAI and Anthropic and Google are doing in your area? Or is that something you're...
Well, we'll see. I think it's additive. That's the more research that goes into the space, the more we can actually use as well to develop our own models. And fundamentally, we have a lot of proprietary data, and I think that we can plug that in, and we already get very good results from this data, from our models, and we have developed a number of very successful enzyme systems that are now scaling into market. So as long as we can keep doing that and do it at a price and a cost structure that is competitive with both bio-based solutions, but also some of the oil products, I think we won't be concerned from our side.
So you envisage having a kind of a collegiate relationship as opposed to seeing them as a threat then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, right, okay. So, and just more broadly, I mean, I think Kate touched on this on one of her earlier panels. Why is having AI no longer a category moat? I think you may have, Gustav?
I think it's because it's so easy to implement. If you're working within, for example, in the biosector, you should be implementing it. It's a wonderful tool to be able to draw new relationships, see things in data that you couldn't see previously. But there are also a ton of models that you can implement, retrain, and develop internally with quite small means.
Any thoughts?
I mean, I think Gustav's more or less captured it. I think it's a matter of how it's used, right? That there are fundamental differences. There are any number of, basically every deck we look at now has AI involved, which makes it a bit of a, at least a question of what do you actually mean by that? How AI native is it? Or is it sort of an add-on of a bot, a chat function, something that's a nice additive feature, but it's not fundamentally change the product? That I suppose, is more what we look for. The question of whether or not it's core to your business and can you have defensibility without AI, it's a fair question, particularly in some of our areas. Nonetheless, we'll always look to kind of determine the difference.
Okay, I've got one eye on the clock. We've got just over a minute. I'll leave the last words to Gustav. Can you just talk about what are the plans for the rest of the year? I mean, will you be doing any more fundraising, or what's the long-term goal?
Yeah, so we're going to try to launch our first 2 products into market, meaning that we're currently scaling them for manufacturing, and hopefully launch in Q3, Q4 this year. And then beyond that, we will be heading into our Series A towards the end of the year and early next year.
Okay. Would you be investing in that, Ali? Or?
Let's get a time sheet on the table.
Exactly. Is this quotable? Yes. I mean, we're most funds like us are not single check investors. We're a very concentrated investor. We have a portfolio of 16 companies. We always have follow-on and reserve. That said, we will always look at the proposition to be sure that it's still aligned and we believe in the big picture. So far, so good.
That's kind of breaking news, then. Not substantiated. Right, that's great. Thank you. I think we've run out of time. So thank you both very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.